Have you ever felt like you just want to disappear? Not physically disappear, but dissolve, like your consciousness could just switch off. No emotions, no connections, no responsibility, no existence. Have you ever laid in bed at night or just before waking and thought, what if time could just stop so I don't have to face today? That heavy, empty, void-like feeling doesn't come from weakness. It comes from being emotionally drained for far too long. And this happens so often in narcissistic relationships, whether romantic, a parent-child dynamic, or even in the workplace. When you are around a narcissist long enough, something begins to shift inside you. Your feelings are repeatedly invalidated. Your experiences are questioned. Your perception is dismissed. You are gaslighted. And when that happens over and over again, your nervous system does something protective. It shuts down. This shutdown isn't dramatic. It's quiet, subtle, and it's biological. When constant hyper-alertness overwhelms your ability to cope, your body shifts into conservation mode. You might feel exhausted in a way that sleep doesn't fix. You might feel disconnected from yourself, like you are watching your life instead of living it. You may struggle to feel joy, struggle to think clearly, struggle to connect. You withdraw, you isolate, you tell yourself you are just tired. But you are not just tired, you are overloaded. Every morning you wake up wondering what version of the day you are going to get. Will it be peaceful? Will there be sarcasm, anger, devaluation? Even when nothing dramatic happens, the emotional atmosphere feels heavy. Your system is always scanning. This is especially intense if you are an empath. Empaths don't just understand emotions, they feel them. They sense resentment in a glance. They feel anger in silence. They detect tension before a word is spoken. A narcissist doesn't even have to say anything. You already know something is off. And this is where gaslighting becomes so devastating. Because you know something is wrong. You feel the manipulation. You sense the inconsistencies, but you cannot prove it. It feels like trying to explain a dream. You know what you have seen and experienced. You know it was real to you. But when you try to put it into words, it falls apart. Others dismiss it. They say you are overthinking, too sensitive, imagining things. So now you are holding two realities at once. What you feel internally and what you are being told externally. That internal conflict creates deep psychological exhaustion. It builds inside you because you cannot release it safely outside. Over time, you start minimizing yourself. You learn that if you say everything you feel, it won't be understood. If you express hurt, you will be mocked. If you confront, it will escalate. So you accommodate, you soften yourself, you overserve, you over-explain, you become hyper-aware of everyone else's moods. You become the regulator. And this is how you become people-pleaser. Stress, anxiety, and trauma. These are the three hidden forces operating in narcissistic relationships. When they become the background atmosphere of your life, your nervous system stops resting. It stays alert, guarded, and prepared. That is survival mode. The depth of that survival state depends on the depth of trauma-induced stress and anxiety. There are three forms of trauma. Acute trauma, resulting from a single overwhelming event. Chronic trauma, resulting from repeated emotional strain over time. Complex trauma, resulting from long-term exposure to emotionally unsafe environments. And complex trauma is what often forms in narcissistic relationships. In these conditions, the amygdala, the part of your brain that scans for danger, remains activated, constantly asking, is it safe? Is it safe? At the same time, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for reasoning and clear decision making, struggles to function under chronic stress. When it's overloaded, your thinking feels noisy and confused. You overanalyze, you second guess. You cannot access calm, logical clarity the way you normally would. And eventually, when your nervous system can no longer sustain that constant state of high alert, it does the only thing it knows: how to survive. So it shuts down. That shutdown feels like numbness, like emptiness, like wanting to dissolve. Some people try to escape that feeling through alcohol, drugs, emotional detachment, or isolation. They try to numb what already feels numb. But numbing doesn't heal, it only disconnects you further from yourself. So, how do you escape that sense of dissolving into nothingness? You begin by calming your nervous system. And to do that, you practice a small but powerful shift. You move from taking everything in to simply observing. Right now, you are imbibing everything like a sponge imbibes water. Every tone shift, every sigh, every subtle change in energy. It all enters you. It all becomes yours to process. But what if you don't imbibe it? Imagine watching birds from a distance. You hear them, you sense them, but you are not one of them. Imagine standing beside a river. You see the current, you observe the flow, but you are not drowning in it. In the same way, begin to observe people's behaviors as patterns, not to judge, not to attack, but to protect your discernment, to clearly recognize what is healthy and what is harmful, without background noise, without emotional distortion. You are simply noticing, you are simply seeing. And when you stop taking on what isn't yours, something begins to shift. Your nervous system slowly starts to calm. Your mind becomes quieter. Emotional clarity increases. Your intuition sharpens. And your prefrontal cortex, the reasoning part of your brain, finally has space to function again. When reasoning comes back online, everything changes. You stop managing other people's emotional realities. You understand that you are not their regulator. If they are sad, you let them be sad. If they are anxious, you let them be anxious. If they are uncomfortable with your growth, you let them be uncomfortable. You stop fixing what you did not break. You stop over investing energy in teaching someone how to treat you with basic respect. You stop over functioning just to keep everything from falling apart. And when manipulation shows up, you don't explode, you don't collapse. You simply say internally, I see what you're doing and I'm not going to engage. That is not coldness, that is emotional maturity. You begin to understand a powerful truth. When you minimize yourself long enough, other people get comfortable with that version of you. And when you finally stop shrinking, they say you have changed. Yes, you have. You stopped overextending yourself because your nervous system is no longer trapped in survival mode. You have reset. You have recalibrated. That is not rebellion, that is growth. True empathy is not self-sacrifice. True empathy is the ability to clearly perceive both your emotional reality and someone else's, while maintaining a healthy boundary between the two. It means giving yourself permission to prioritize your emotional well-being without guilt. And that is strength, not selfishness. And here is the truth. You don't actually want to disappear. You want the pain to disappear, the confusion to disappear, the chaos to disappear. The day you stop imbibing and start observing, the day you stop managing everyone else's emotions, the day you stop shrinking to keep the peace, that is the day you begin returning to yourself. When you shift from imbibing to observation, the nervous system calms, the mind clears, the exhaustion begins to lift. You don't dissolve, you re-emerge. Not as a louder version of yourself or a harder version of yourself, but as a clearer one. You begin to recognize your true worth. not the worth that was negotiated, criticized, or minimized by someone else, but the worth that exists independent of anyone's approval. You start to see your potential again. The parts of you that were shrinking begin to expand. The ideas you doubted, the strength you questioned, the voice you softened, it all begins to come back. And most importantly, you understand something deeply. You understand that you are the owner of your emotions, not them. Hi, I'm Dr. Lavanya. Please subscribe and continue watching my videos where I share all about narcissism, both the spiritual and the psychological aspects of it. I will see you all in my next video. Until then, take care and bye.